Hello, scruff tords and all you wonderful online weirdos. And yeah, all the Vatniks. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna come here either way, so hello to you too. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we're gonna have a lot to cover in this video. Ukraine fights back, it appears, up in Kursk. So we're gonna take a look at where Ukraine has maybe pushed Russia back. But first, we're going to take a look at some proper Swedish support for Ukraine. We're also going to take a look at that ICBM strike. Was it an intercontinental ballistic missile or was it something else? Then we're going to be taking a look at the maps and then we're going to take a look where Ukraine has maybe pushed Russia back. We're also going to take a look at a report from Task and Purpose. If you haven't checked out their channel yet, do it. I think everyone knows Task and Purpose, right? But we're going to take a look what they wrote on their community page. And that will link into the logistical situation in Kursk and down in Kharkiv. And we're gonna finish off quickly by taking a quick look at Kherson. Anyway, let's get on with it. Right, so we're starting off with some news from the Swedish Defense Minister, as he informs us that Sweden will soon contribute substantial funds to make Ukraine able to mass produce Ukrainian long-range missiles and long-range drones. This will be made possible through the Danish model. It aims to channel funds to the Ukrainian defense industry to make them able to build more indigenous weapon systems. This increases the industrial base in Ukraine and Europe. And as has been stated previously, Sweden has avoided restrictions on the use of our donated funds and weapons, including the use on Russian territory. Ukraine is clearly exercising its right to self-defense in accordance with international law. Supporting Ukraine is not escalating. So, yeah, quite clearly, Sweden is about to provide a lot of money to Ukraine so that Ukraine can develop and produce their own long-range missiles to be able to strike targets deep within Russia proper. And no, it's not escalation because, Russia has been striking deep inside of Ukraine for a long time, 3 years almost, and Ukraine has only just begun striking targets in Russia. So this is clearly not an escalation. It's just Ukraine doing to Russia what Russia is doing to Ukraine. And I'm happy that my tax money is being used to achieve this. And speaking of taxes well spent, we have here that confirmation that the spare parts that Sweden has set aside for the possibility of Ukraine in the future using Gripen fighter jets, that is enough to cover the use of 14 aircraft. Not surprising to us Swedes, Gripen fighter jets are often sold to other countries in batches of 14, 12 fighter configurations and 2 double-seated for training purposes. That can be used as combat aircraft as well, obviously. And Saab has had 14 aircraft ready to be put together as long as someone funded the cash. They had the airframes and all the internal parts sitting on a shelf, and just in case someone were to front cash for them, and they've just been waiting for a couple of years to put them together, and now we have a buyer, and Sweden is obviously diverting funds and spare parts and what have you to making sure that Ukraine can fly 14 aircraft. I think it's only a matter of time before we will see these fighter jets, Gripen, Charlie version, uh, deployed by the Ukrainian Air Force. And I mean, it's an exceptional aircraft that will suit Ukraine very well, since it's designed to be this guerrilla fighter in the sky that doesn't need a proper airfield to be fully functional. And just to quickly touch on the subject of the ICBM that Russia potentially used the other day against Ukraine. Now, we learn from Putin himself that it wasn't a ICBM, it was rather an IRBM, intermediate range ballistic missile. And and I mean, the West clearly, they were early on saying, no, this is not an ICBM, it's something else. And now Russia has confirmed it. It is an IRBM. And it's capable of Mach 10, 10 times the speed of sound. Which I mentioned in, or when I made a video a day or two ago. This was my understanding, that this was a shorter range ballistic missile that was traveling, that relied on speeds of Mach 10. And then all the Vatniks came in, no, it's the big, massive ICBM Mach 20, it's unstoppable. But it turns out I was actually correct. It was a smaller type of ballistic missile that reach where the warheads reached Mach 10 and not Mach 20. How about that? I was correct. Weird how that seems to be the case every now and then, quite often. So yeah. And so the question was, can you intercept something like this coming at you at Mach 10? Well, I sure as hell aren't an expert at this, but we have here that, in 2023, well over a year ago, Ukraine relied on the US Patriot missiles to down incoming missiles traveling at Mach 10. So obviously, the Patriot is capable of intercepting missiles flying at you at Mach 10. So the question is, are the Patriots good enough to target something that is coming at you from straight above? I don't know, no clue. But if it's coming at you at Mach 10, maybe the Patriots do have a chance of intercepting if you have enough of them in the area. I don't know. But Russia has said that this particular missile, the warheads, they come at you at Mach 10, and quite clearly the Patriot system can down missiles going at Mach 10. Argue in the comment section. Why not? It helps the algorithm, and that spreads the video to more people. And, well, quite frankly, that ensures that I make some cash. So argue away. Right, so back to the maps, and for the frontline update. Not much on the ISW differs from the other day, but the other mappers, they seem to confirm, at least in part, what we're seeing here on the ISW map. Like I said, 24 to 48 hours after ISW has made a change, the other mappers usually come in line. Sometimes it's 72 hours later on. But the ISW map appears to be static for now. So let's head on over to Andrew Perpetua. Let's see what's down in Kharkiv. Here we are at Kursk. And as you can see, Andrew has now moved Ukrainian positions back. Like I said they would. The difference is that ISW has this entire area here down to Malaya Loknia here. That all of this is under Russian control. But Andrew has Russia only here at the outskirts, and then you have contested territory. And he's not alone in this. If we jump on over to Deep State, down at Kharkiv again, here you can see once more, just like Andrew, Ukraine has fallen back from the forested area here and Kremenoe, but they're still in control of Pogrebki and the territory here between Nova Ivanovka and Malaya Lokna. ISW claims that west of the river, all the way down to the road basically, is in Russian control. And if we take a look at Mayakovsk 73, as you can see here, he shows us the same as Deep State and Andrew Perpetua. The forest here, south of Kremenoe, Russia's pushed in. You have contested territory north of the valleys in Malaya and Lokna, but Ukraine is still in control here. So, what we can be sure of by the looks of it is that I did not hit pause, thank you. At least I don't think. Oh, that's gonna be interesting. Let's do it this way. No, had to double check that I did not hit pause. I'm still recording, so let's move on. So my map, I have therefore listed this, highlighted this as Russian, and also here because we have seen Russia. Remember, I have been for a week or so been talking about the Russians trying to move in this way towards Novaya Sorichna, and that made me think that maybe Russia was over here and also in control of the woods here. And now that we see that the map is have indeed updated, showing us Russian advances in the area, I think the fact that Russia has moved down this road here does indicate that they are in control of the territory here and this forest here as well. The question is, has Russia moved down to Kruglenkoe? And are they in control of Pogrebki and Novaya Sorichna? Let's see here, was it, which mapper was it that showed us? Yeah, take a look here. This was from the 18th BTR destroyed in Staraya Sorichna, so a couple of days old. Maybe that is too old to make something out of it. No, we're gonna keep this as contested or unknown, with the red bars indicating that Russia is the aggressor trying to push into these areas. So I think this is a realistic viewpoint of the front line. We have Russia here, we have them over here, and this is a bit unknown, contested area where everything is being fought over and front lines are moving back and forth. Static positions as it appears to be here between Leonodovo and Nova Ivanovka. This is the area being fought over, and we have had Ukraine right here trying to push into Nova Ivanovka, but the question is if they are doing it as they're falling back up here. It's going to be interesting to see if, since Ukraine has moved away from this area and up here and maybe have abandoned all of this as well, if all of these forces will be used to push in here into Nova Ivanovka. That may be an option. But what I think has happened, I mean, I've talked about this area here for weeks, that it's difficult for Ukraine to hold on to this territory. So I'm thinking that when we saw Ukraine a couple of days ago push north into Pogrebki, it was to secure the bridge here and the roads going south to allow Ukraine to fall back from these areas safely. And now that they have fallen back, I think the forces in Pogrebki will also fall back down towards Malaya Loknia, and they will then hold the river. Let me show you here. This river here will become a defensive barrier that Ukraine will defend. And so Ukraine will be on the eastern side, Russia on the western side, and then we'll see if Ukraine can hold on to Leonodovo and continue the fighting within Nova Ivanovka. What else? Russia has pushed across here. Darino seems to have got stuck a bit, and they haven't really pushed out from these positions. They have managed to push across here, I do believe. outside of Nizhny Klin, a small village. We'll see if they can get across these wide open fields. As you can see, this is dangerous territory. Very easy to target vehicles trying to move across these open fields and open spaces. We'll see if Russia can make a move up this way towards this very small village. And I think that's it. But we have one more interesting location, and I'll show you here on Mayakovsk 73 in his map. Take a look here outside of Martinovka. He has, and he's alone with this, by the way. The other mappers doesn't show this. He claims that Ukraine has made this push eastward, south of the highway here. So, if we take a look at my map, that should be this area here that Ukraine has pushed into this valley here and this small village of Kruglik. We'll see if the other mappers will update their maps as well to show the same, or if this is something that Mayakovsk 73 has, made up on his own or misinterpreted a situation or what have you. So interesting to see if this is actually a location where Ukraine has pushed in and gained territory while Russia is gaining territory up here in the north. Right, I also want to read you this, a community post made by Task and Purpose, because they have, or their main guy at least, has traveled to Ukraine and visited Kursk and, been right on the front line. And so we're gonna have to wait and see the videos from his visit to Kursk. I highly recommend that you keep an eye out for this, because I think this is going to be very interesting reporting from the situation in Kursk. Anyway, he writes, I traveled to the front lines in Kursk, Russia, in the occupied territory by Ukraine. I can tell you the intensity of the artillery shelling here is insane. Every minute, multiple shells being fired, FPV drones buzzing overhead. It's terrifying. You only can hear them when they're within about 40 meters distance, too late to react. Ukraine appears to be throwing everything they have in this direction to stabilize the front. When you look on a map, you might think that it's a straight shot, easy ride into Kursk, but on the ground, that road is chewed to shit by tanks and bombs. It takes forever to drive across because of the potholes. I saw hundreds of logistics vehicles pouring into Kursk from Sumy. So, I mean, that I need you to think about this for a moment here. The logistical situation. Like you said, tank tracks, bombs, you have dozens and dozens, hundreds of overloaded trucks driving along these roads, and that will turn everything into a hellhole. Keep that in mind as I want to point out a couple of things. So, returning a bit here to Kursk and the map, remember when Ukraine was holding on to this area here and I was talking about it's difficult to supply this section of the front line? And also when Ukraine was up here, they had these towns, they had this forest and this narrow stretch of cover. That meant they would have to move up here through here with their logistics somehow, their supplies, cross these fields, move along here to not get shot at by the Russians, get through the forest and then up to these towns. Very difficult logistical route, right, to keep it open and safe. So that's why I said it's only a matter of time before Ukraine falls back from here. It's only a matter of time before Ukraine eventually falls back from here, because it's so difficult to supply these areas. Ukraine, if they wanted to hold on to this area here, they really needed to move in south and grab territory down here, which never happened, and that made it, in the long run, impossible to hold on to this territory. And same thing here. You can't supply these front lines coming in this way. You have to come in this way, and that will, make all of this a muddy mess that will make it difficult to continue fighting up here, especially when you're being hit by bombs and drones. Now, so keep that in mind, because we're going to take a look at one more location when we're moving down to Kharkiv and zoom in here. Why is Ukraine having successes pushing up on this big hill here at Hluboki north of Kharkiv? This is happening because Ukraine has pushed into Suravlevka, and they have now cut this highway that's going from within Russia into the front line. And being on the highway, Russia is now forced to move away from that main road and take a look at all of these roads here. Dirt tracks, mud tracks, and this is Russia's logistical route into Kharkiv, or into this section of the Kharkiv front at least. Right? So all of those trucks, hundreds of them, they need to avoid the Ukrainians and also move across these very poor roads here in this part of town. That will slow down logistics, that will prevent logistics, disrupt logistics, and that affects the front line down here. And that is why Ukraine can now make gains, because the Russians down here, they're not getting the resources they need to hold a stable front line. And I'm thinking I might also be talking about a bit about Kherson in the future. I mean, yes, a lot of things is going on up here in Kursk. You have missiles landing in Bryansk, in Kursk, Belgorod, all over the place. You have the Russian advances here at Pokrovsk. But damn it, I mean, Ukraine, they're still building up that amphibious force that I was covering during the spring. Operation Chef Smell. I think it's still in effect. It still might happen. Because not long ago, Denmark provided Ukraine with additional combat boat 90, the Swedish heavy assault craft that Ukraine has already received. I think it's 22 that they received, plus the ones from Denmark. So maybe somewhere between 25 to 30 combat boat 90 is now available to Ukraine, and they can carry 18 troops each. So as you can imagine, with 30 of them, you can perform a very significant amphibious assault. And let's be honest, this is the only area where that's going to happen. So we'll be talking about a bit Kherson and the general area of Kherson in the future, sporadically, I think. And of course, Ukraine has received more than combat boat 90. It's well beyond 200 assault craft and high-speed transports that they have received from 6 to 7 countries by now. So they have very capable amphibious abilities that they can put to use here in Kherson in getting Marines across the ocean and to liberate occupied territories in Kherson. So yeah, so stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about that a bit in the future, I think. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah, argue in the comments. Can you intercept a missile coming at you, going at Mach 10 straight from above with a Patriot missile? I mean, we know the Patriots can't intercept ordinary missiles, cruise missiles going at Mach 10, but what about ballistic missiles? Can they intercept those warheads? Obviously, it's a cluster effect from these larger ballistic missiles, but still, in theory, can you intercept something coming at you from above going at Mach 10 with the Patriot? I mean, let it rip in the comment section. And also let me know what you think about Swedish support for Ukraine. What does that mean? How will that affect the war? How will it affect Sweden? I know you Vatniks, you want to comment on this. You have quite a few things to tell me about how this will be devastating for Sweden. So let me know. And that will not at all affect the algorithm and push the video to more people and help me out. And on that note, I mean, I never do this, but why not? Why not like, share, subscribe, and all that fun jazz, and maybe even support the channel with, becoming a member. Uh, I think this is the first time I actually mentioned something like this in a year of doing YouTube. So here you go. Become a member. Like, share, and subscribe, and the usual YouTube shit. Anyway, this is gonna have to be it. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.